Friends, we can all see that many white bloggers have millions of followers. Please support me too, because my followers are still few. Black bloggers also deserve to be famous. Raise fist medium dark skin tone. My friends, let's unite and lift each other up. Please press subscribe button and like. The raid on Maplewood Drive. The first sound wasn't a car crash or a fallen tree. It was the front door of the Vance family home at 14 Maplewood Drive exploding inward, torn from its hinges by a SWAT ram. Splinters flew across the lawn like shrapnel. Inside, 16-year-old Nia Vance sat frozen at the kitchen table, her spoon halfway to her mouth. Her father, David, an Army veteran, was slammed to the floor before he could even stand. Her mother, Monica, a civil rights attorney, tried to shield her daughter, only to have cold plastic zip ties bite into her wrists. Masked men in tactical gear stormed the home, rifles raised. "Hands where I can see them," they shouted. Every second was chaos. Yet, beneath the noise was a disturbing calm, the precision of men who believed they were in the right house. But they weren't. The warrant they carried had a different address. 14 Maplewood Court. A single letter was the difference between an ordinary morning and a nightmare. For the officers, that detail vanished. All they saw was a black family in a predominantly white neighborhood. And for them, that was enough. Cameras on nearby porches caught the aftermath. David pinned under 3 men, blood streaking the carpet. Monica screaming that she was a lawyer. Nia with a rifle muzzle inches from her forehead. The footage raced across social media, fueling outrage. #WrongHouseRaid to the world. It looked like a tragic mistake, another line in a long history of wrong doors and accidental raids that always fell on black families. But inside the Vance home, something far darker was unfolding. Monica wasn't just a lawyer. She was an attorney who had been working quietly with the Department of Justice, compiling evidence against local SWAT teams for targeting minorities. She knew the playbook: raids on flimsy warrants, planted evidence, lies written into reports. And now, in her own kitchen, she watched it happen in real time. As one officer tore through the pantry, she heard the words that changed everything. "Bag it, make it stick." Seconds later, a Ziploc bag of Nia's protein powder was labeled as narcotics. This wasn't incompetence. This was intentional. The Vance family hadn't just suffered the wrong door. They had stumbled into a conspiracy meant to bury investigations and intimidate witnesses. The SWAT unit didn't know that the woman zip-tied on the floor was the one person capable of bringing their entire system down. The raid was built on a lie. The affidavit, signed less than 24 hours earlier, was for 14 Maplewood Court. The Vances lived at 14 Maplewood Drive. That single letter became the difference between an ordinary morning and a nightmare. Still, as the SWAT sergeant barked orders, no one admitted the mistake. David lay restrained, his face pressed against the carpet he had vacuumed the night before. He could hear the officers moving through his home, boot steps echoing on hardwood. Every sound was an insult to the years he had spent defending the country, only to be treated like an enemy in his own house. When he tried to speak, a rifle but nudged his ribs. "Stay down," an officer hissed. Monica, forced to her knees with her hands bound, kept her eyes on her daughter. Nia trembled, tears streaking her cheeks. Monica's instincts as a mother screamed louder than her training as an attorney. She wanted to protect her child, but she also knew something chilling. Everything unfolding in that room looked exactly like the affidavit she had been collecting for the Department of Justice. She had seen the pattern. Now she was living it. The sergeant's voice cut through her thoughts. "Clear the upstairs. Bag anything suspicious." His men moved with mechanical precision. It was a performance. Then she heard the words that made her blood run cold. "Bag it. Make it stick." An officer emerged from the pantry, holding a small Ziploc bag. Nia gasped. It wasn't cocaine or meth. It was her protein supplement. Monica's legal brain instantly calculated the danger. If that bag went into the official report, the Vance family could be buried under fabricated charges. The raid lasted less than 40 minutes, but for the Vances, it stretched like an eternity. By the time the SWAT team left, The front door was destroyed, and a living room that looked more like a battlefield than a family home was left behind. They left shattered glass, bruised wrists, and an unspoken threat. Stay quiet or it gets worse. That night, Monica sat at the dining table, surrounded by debris. David nursed a split lip. Nia clutched her phone, scrolling through social media where the hashtag Wrong House Raid was climbing fast. The video clips from neighbors showed everything. But Monica knew viral outrage was only the beginning. The department could still bury this. In the quiet of her battered home, she pulled out a thin black folder. Inside were the case files she had been gathering for months. The raid had changed everything. Now she had personal proof. She looked at the wreckage and whispered, this was no mistake. In that moment, the Vance family stopped being victims. They became witnesses. The raid left scars deeper than the broken glass. David replayed every moment, like a soldier reviewing battlefield footage. The sergeant's cold orders, the planted evidence. These were not accidents. They were calculated choices. Monica, still bruised, scanned her legal files. Case after case showed the same signature. Forced entry on bad intelligence, aggressive tactics. Black family portrayed as uncooperative. Now, the pattern wasn't abstract. It had her face. She called 2 colleagues at the Department of Justice. Document everything. The official said, don't assume your local reports will survive intact. We'll move fast, but you need to hold your ground. Meanwhile, Nia's phone exploded. The hashtags multiplied. Hashtag racist cop raid. But with visibility came risk. By dawn, trolls flooded their accounts, accusing the family of hiding something. Anonymous messages slipped into their inboxes. Stop playing the victim. You think DOJ will protect you? Think again. David knew intimidation when he saw it. This wasn't random. It was a signal. Someone wanted them quiet. The next day, 2 detectives from Internal Affairs arrived. Their smiles were rehearsed, but their questions were leading. Did the family have relatives with criminal records? Was it possible the suspect they were chasing had used the Vance address by mistake? Monica answered with the precision of a trial attorney. When they left, David turned to her. They weren't here to investigate, he said. They were here to build a story against us. But the Vances had something most victims didn't. Proof. David retrieved the hard drive from the hidden security system he had installed years earlier. The footage showed everything. The question was what to do with it. If they handed it to local authorities, it could disappear. If they waited for the DOJ, the delay might allow the department to bury them. But if they leaked it, they risked retaliation. While they debated, David noticed something strange. A younger officer in the footage, the one whose eyes had met Monica's, seemed at odds with his team. His body language screamed discomfort. At one point, he seemed to look directly at the hallway camera, almost intentionally. Was he signaling them? The young officer returned one final time. He didn't come in uniform. He came in a plain hoodie and a baseball cap pulled low. He identified himself as Daniel Ward. His voice shook as he spoke. I can't keep my mouth shut anymore. What they did to you, it wasn't an error. They were ordered to do it. The word dropped like a lead weight. Daniel explained what he'd heard. A closed-door meeting where superiors discussed targeting Monica Vance by name. She was a problem. The raid was about intimidation. They wanted you silenced, Daniel admitted. He slid a flash drive across the table. This is my body cam copy. If they find out, I'm done. But people need to see it. The storm came faster than expected. 2 days later, 2 men in suits circled the Vance house. They weren't reporters. Their posture screamed law enforcement. That night, Monica's phone buzzed with an unknown number. Mrs. Vance dropped the footage. You're playing with fire. If you push this, the DOJ won't save you. We know how to make people disappear without headlines. David returned from the garage, carrying an old duffel bag. Inside were a satellite phone, a burner laptop, and encrypted drives. If they want a war, he said quietly, we'll give them one on our terms. But Monica knew their path was law and exposure. The decision was irreversible. Sophia drove to a discreet meeting point. The journalist she trusted, Rachel Price, waited in a dim cafe. As Rachel scrolled through the encrypted drive, her brow furrowed. "This isn't sloppy work," she whispered. "This is police misconduct on a scale that screams cover-up. If this airs, the entire city will ignite." Monica's reply was steady. "Then let it ignite." Rachel's story went live the next morning, despite threats. The footage aired in prime time, uncut and raw. The nation recoiled. Public outrage erupted. Protesters filled downtown Austin. Civil rights attorneys filed motions, citing the Vance case as proof of systemic abuse. The sergeant held a press conference, but his words rang hollow against the images playing on split screens behind him. But the climax came not on television, but at the Vance home. As protests raged outside City Hall, an unmarked car screeched to a halt near their driveway. Two masked men with bats leapt out, sprinting toward the house. David reacted instinctively, pushing Nia behind him. But before the men could strike, neighbors swarmed from porches, their phones held high. The attackers froze, realized they were surrounded by dozens of lenses, and bolted back into the car. The video was uploaded instantly. Any doubt about the intimidation evaporated. This wasn't random, it was orchestrated. The raid that was meant to silence them became the very evidence that exposed the truth. The intimidation meant to terrify them only amplified their voices. Indictments followed. A handful of officers faced charges. A deputy chief resigned. Federal funds were frozen. For headlines, it looked like justice. But Monica knew better. Justice wasn't a finish line. It was a fight renewed every day. She kept working. Courtrooms across the state began hearing cases from families who now felt brave enough to speak. David spoke to veteran groups, warning about militarized policing. And Nia, once a terrified teenager, turned her essays into a scholarship path to study civil rights. The raid started with a shattered door. It ended with a mirror held up to the nation. And once that mirror cracked, everyone had to decide what they saw.